Hello, everyone. Um, this is CCCS220, Object-Oriented Programming. I have been getting a couple of emails that some of you have been having trouble completing the programming task for today. So what I'm going to do is I am going to show you how you were supposed to complete this assignment in class. It's actually very straightforward. So this programming task was based on material that you have and should have already covered in Programming 1 or Introduction to Programming, the previous programming course. So I'll just go through this. I'll do this very quickly. So this is my NetBeans IDE. I'm using version 8.2. Please make sure you have NetBeans IDE working on your computers by next class. If you are having problems using NetBeans, remember first to install the Java SDK or JDK, and then install NetBeans. There are several different versions of NetBeans IDE, and each requires a specific version of the Java JDK. So I'm running NetBeans IDE version 8.2, and I think the JDK I have with this is JDK version 8. So I'm just going to verify that very quickly. So uh, I have a Windows machine. So over here I go into the control panel, what programs I've installed, hit J, and I have the Java JDK version 8. Okay, so version 8 definitely runs with NetBeans IDE version 8. Okay, so let's see. This is the task that you were supposed to complete today. So it's the first part. All you have to do is you have to take an integer from the user as input, uh, calculate this number y, and print it to the screen. And the second part, I'm just going to read ahead. In the second part, this calculation of y is supposed to be done inside a method, and you should call that method linear, and it's supposed to take an integer as argument. And the class to which this linear method belongs should be called method test. Now, in order to save some time, I'm going to do all of this in a single class, and I'm just going to call my class method test. And after that, I'll call the linear method inside of the main method. So basically, the messy part of calculating the value of y will be put inside of this method linear. So it'll hopefully make my code look a little less messy. Okay, so let me go over here and start from the beginning. So this is NetBeans ID. I haven't done anything yet. So what I'll do is first I have to create a new project for this assignment. I hit new project. I want to make a new Java application. So this is the type of project I'm making. Hit next, and I'm going to give it the name method test, the name of the class. Okay, in Java, file names have to be the same as the name of the class. Okay. Okay, so method test, finish, and an empty source test.java. So method test. You can see that I have a one line over here that says package method test. A package in Java is basically the name that you give to a collection of classes that you're going to keep together because you use them together in a program, for example. It's basically the name of it's kind of like a library name. Okay, so what the NetBeans IDE does is it gives me some skeleton code that I most probably need in any case. In this case, I have a public class method test, and it contains a main method uh, over here, and I can start coding on the very next line. Okay, so let's begin. First, I know I will have a variable, an integer variable x. So we declare variables in at the start of the method in the start of the at the start of the program always. So we'll have an integer x, and I am calculating another number. So make this one a double. Because, well, yes, in this case, the numbers will still be the y will always be an integer, but it might not necessarily be if the mathematical function that I'm calculating, if that is something different. So I'm going to make this one a double, no harm. Okay, these are the only two variables I'll need, I think. So first thing is I need to read a number, the integer x from the command line, and I use that using the Java scanner class. Okay, and I'm going to call the instance of the scanner class I'm using, I'm going to call that input. And now I have to actually allocate memory to that, and I'll be reading, I'll be taking input from the standard input, which is the keyboard of my computer. Okay, so I'll be getting input from the computer, computer keyboard. Oh, all right. Next, just to make things a little better looking, I'll print out a message so I know what's happening. And this message will say to the user, enter the value of x. Enter the value of x. And I'll have a colon space, and then we'll wait for input from the user. And then I will read the input as x is equal to input, and I'm reading an integer, so I'm calling the next int method, and this will read, it will treat the input received from the keyboard as an integer and scan it and store it into integer variable x. Now I have x. Now I have to calculate y, and y is 3 times x minus 2x plus 4. Okay, that's it. Now I just have to print out the value of y, and just do system.out.print on a new line, print, and then after that go to the next. Let me do it without first to show you the difference. So I'm going to print out y is equal to, and then I print out the value of y. And I think this should work. This is all. This is all you had to do to complete the first part. Let me run this. Now, IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. It's called that because I have a single program, a single window to edit my code, run it, and see the output. It's all happening inside of this NetBeans IDE. I don't have to open up the command prompt, use a separate program to edit the code. It's all happening inside the same code. Okay. All right. So build successful. Great. Okay, so let me run this from up here. There you go. So enter the value of x. I'll enter 5. And the value for y is 69. All right. You'll notice that this last message by the ID build successful is showing up on the same line as y is equal to 69.0. If I want to avoid that, I can just use the print ln or print line command instead of simply the print command. See what that does. What that does is it adds a new line character after everything I have in here in the argument, after all of that is printed. See, the output looks, oops, should look a little neater. Let me fix that. save that first. Let me go in here and clean the project. So any temporary files that are there will be thrown out. Run this again. Okay, 5. There you go. There you go. Build successful. And now you can see that this message is showing up on the next line. So it just looks a little neater, a little cleaner this way. Okay, so this is the difference between the print and print line methods. Okay, so this was part one. Part two will only take a minute. So basically what we want to do is we want to move the calculation of y into this method linear. Okay, so first of all, how do I add another method to the class I have, method test? It's simple. Again, this is something I expect you should have already done. So I add a new public method. I'm going to make this one static as well. You don't need to know what static means at this point. You need to know what comes after that. This method will calculate a value of type double and send it back. So the next parameter is double, and then the name of the method is linear, and it will take as argument an integer which I'm calling x. I can give it another name as well. I can call this a over here, for example. And in here, this method is going to return a value. We call this one, I don't know, b, which means I have to calculate b. It will be of type double, and it's going to be 3 times a times a minus 2a plus 4. So this will work, but if you're confused by why I'm using a and b over here, I could just call this x as well. And I have to make all of these x. I call this one y. I have to make this one y as well. But what you have to know is that this x exists inside of this linear method, and this x is a different variable from the x I'm using up here. So the x in this main method is a different x from down here. So, okay, so let me just go back to using x and y. But I can really call this argument I'm getting, I can give this any name. What matters more is that it is the right type of argument. It has to be an integer. If I say over here it has to be an integer, I have to use an integer in my code, of course. Okay, so I'm going to leave the code that I wrote. I'm going to leave that untouched, and I'm just going to add another line over here. And so I'm going to calculate this value of y two different ways. So we already did one way, and in the second way, all I'm going to do is system.out.println. And y is equal. So okay, right. So this is using linear method. Y is equal to, and then I'm going to print out the value of y, but I'm going to calculate it by calling this linear method that I have now added to my method test class. And how do I call it? Just call linear, and in here I pass the value of x, which I was reading in from the keyboard up here. Okay. Right. Run this. Okay. So now I'm calculating the value of y in two different ways. Oh, still has to be cleaned out. Just a second. Clean the project, and once again. Okay. Value 5. There you go. So the value of y is 69. This is from the first version of the program, and this second output that I'm seeing using linear method, y is equal to 69. So you can see the results are the same, but the first case, I'm calculating y inside of the main method right over here. And for the second case, I am calling the linear method down here. It is doing the calculation, and it is sending back y, which is of type double, and I'm printing that out over here inside the print line at the print line method. And that's it. That's all you were supposed to do. This, I think, only a handful of people actually managed to finish this. This would have earned you 2 out of 2 points today.